歡迎收睇眾坊街，我係潘超強。聯邦政府近日提出修改種族歧視法，其中廢除第18C 條款，引起社會，尤其是係民族社區嘅激烈爭議。佢哋擔心廢除第18C 條款將會為種族仇恨言論打開大門，亮起綠燈。種族歧視法第18C 條款究竟內容係啲乜嘢？聯邦政府點解又要將佢廢除呢？華人社區點樣睇呢個議題呢？聯邦種族歧視事務專員又點解發出強烈嘅反對聲音呢？執政在野雙方佢哋又有啲乜嘢講法呢？眾坊街同你一齊探討。
澳洲一個雲集世界各地民族嘅國家，據最近嘅澳洲統計局嘅數據顯示，估計有27.7%嘅澳洲人口，或者相當於640萬嘅澳洲國民係喺海外出生。點樣保持多元民族和諧共處，一直以嚟都係一個敏感嘅政治議題。
So the research indicates that 40% of those who come from Asian countries have experienced racial discrimination of some sort in the past 12 months. For the Australian Human Rights Commission, last financial year we received a 59% increase in the number of complaints about racial hatred and racial vilification.
面對種族歧視嘅個案未有改善嘅情況下，聯邦政府未有收緊法例，反而放寬。上個月，律政部長布蘭迪斯宣布，政府打算刪除種族歧視法第18C 條例。佢仲表示，人有權做編輯者。呢個講法引起咗民族社區嘅極大迴響，包括華人社區。
我們作為一個移民在這個澳洲 multicultural 的社會裏邊，受到了反種族歧視法S18C 的保護。那假如政府廢除這個條例呢，今後我們的移民，包括每個澳洲公民，就受不到保護。
I think it's a move that's taking society backwards. I mean, as a society, we progress forwards and we become tolerant of each other, and we live in a harmonious, multicultural society. And for these changes that the federal government proposed to do is taking us backwards. It's going to allow people to be ridiculed, humiliated, and especially on the basis of their appearance and on the basis of race, which is a very bad thing.
種族歧視法第18C 條例究竟講嘅係乜嘢呢？
Section 18C is part of the Racial Discrimination Act, and that's the federal law that protects Australians from racial vilification, so from acts of racial abuse and harassment that occur in public. The law currently states that it's unlawful to do anything that may offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate another person on the basis of their race.
咁而家就話一個人如果係一個公眾即係一個喺個公眾場所。咁佢嘅行為係屬於得罪一個人，或者侮辱，或者甚至係恐嚇咧一個特別嘅種族或者一啲嘅宗教嘅人咧，咁樣咧就會觸犯咗呢個條例。
根據政府建議嘅修訂草案，種族歧視法第18C 條例會被廢除，而第18B、第18D 同埋第18E 三個相關嘅條例亦會被廢除。代之而家插嘅係咁樣，基於種族、膚色、國家或者民族背景，而對一個人或一個群體作出 vilify、中傷或者 intimidate 威嚇行為係觸犯法例嘅，除非係喺私人場合。法例又解釋 vilify 中傷係激發一個人或一個群體引起憎恨。而 intimidate 威嚇係指引致恐懼、肢體傷害。而新嘅條例主要係刪除咗 offend 冒犯、insult 侮辱同 humiliate 羞辱呢三個字眼，但係保留咗 intimidate 威嚇以及加插 vilify 中傷呢兩個詞。
就話如果有任何人喺喺個公眾嘅場所係做啲嘢去令到其他人去憎恨佢咁樣先至會觸犯呢個條例。 咁亦都包括如果恐嚇到都係觸犯到嘅，咁即係基本上恐嚇呢個字眼就冇變到啦。咁但係頭先我得罪同呢個侮辱嗰個字眼就刪除咗，就變咗叫憎恨，即係令到其他人去憎恨呢個人，咁樣先至會係觸犯呢個條例嘅。咁但係同時呢個新嘅條例都加咗多少少嘅條款上去啦，就係話而家就話用一個乜嘢嘅考慮，一個咩 test 就係話一般人會唔會覺得呢個人嘅言行係會觸犯呢個法例，就唔係話嗰個所謂嘅被歧視嗰個人嗰個角度去睇件事情。
新嘅條例又規定，條例不適用於公眾喺討論政治、社會、文化、宗教、藝術、學術及科學嘅事項。種族歧視專員擔心，此舉會令種族歧視者多咗藉口。
What I fear is that the new law gets rid of this dividing line between hate speech and free speech. It essentially makes all hate speech a form of free speech.
佢亦擔心新嘅條例更加難判定一個人係咪作出觸犯法例嘅行為，就好似目前經常聽到嘅一啲侮辱嘅説話，就不再係違法。
But things like telling you to go home, or that there are too many of you, that you should go back to your own country, that you don't belong here, or that you're stealing our jobs. These are the sorts of sentiments that many people of Asian background will hear.
这条法律起效以后，它这个就是不违法了。假如你的女儿在路上给人侮辱了，你作为一个父亲，你也不能保护她，因为她没有违法。
I'm very concerned that we will see the green light given to race hate speech. Currently, there are very clear balancing words in between freedom of speech and protections against race hatred. This will tip the balance clearly in favour of race hate speech.
Freedom of speech is all well and good, but freedom of speech shouldn't allow people to be ridiculed and humiliated and make people feel worse, especially on the basis of their skin. Especially for people like us, the Chinese community, we look different. We don't look like the average Caucasian person. We don't look white. So it's not fair that we should be targeted like this.
What the law does is it sends a very important message and signal to society. As it currently stands, it says that it's unacceptable for you to racially vilify someone, for you to degrade someone in public. My concern is that if there's a change in the law, it can send a green light to Australians, particularly a minority of Australians who have prejudiced and bigoted views, to believe that they can express racism in public and that is acceptable behaviour. It's not acceptable behaviour.
喺呢個議題上，一啲聯邦自由黨嘅國會議員亦對政府嘅做法持有保留態度，包括代表新州 Reed 區嘅 Craig Londy 同 Banks 選區嘅大衛高文 David Coleman。
The legislation is trying to strike a balance between two important principles: free speech on the one hand and protection against racial discrimination on the other. So people need to bear that in mind, that the government hasn't said this is it, this is the final legislation. The government simply said here's an exposure draft, what's the view of the community? Now my view is that it needs to be strengthened to provide better protection against discrimination, and I'm sure many other people in the community will have views as well.
而啱啱辭職同屬自由黨嘅新州前州長奧法拉更加明確批評律政部長嘅講法。
Bigotry should never be sanctioned, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Vilifications on the grounds of race or religion is always wrong. There's no place for inciting hatred within our Australian society.
奧法拉表示，喺對抗偏執、不包容同仇恨上邊，冇政府組織及公民可以放鬆警惕。奧法拉已經要求公民與社區廳長多名尼路，負責向聯邦政府提交新州政府嘅反對意見書。
There has not been one community in Australia that has come out and supported these changes.
悉尼嘅華人社團已經展開運動，喺一份倡議書上呼籲社區反對廢除第18C 條例。既然有咁多反對嘅聲音，咁點解聯邦律政部長無緣無故要提出修改呢？呢個關係到2011年9月嘅一宗官司。政治評論員保德 Andrew Bolt 喺先鋒太陽報專欄發表幾篇文章，批評幾名白皮膚嘅人士自稱土著，而從中得到好處，例如贏得獎項等。聯邦法院最後裁定， 保德觸犯種族歧視法第18C 條例。喺呢件事上邊，布蘭迪斯支持保德有言論嘅自由。佢同總理艾保德曾經作出承諾，廢除第18C 條例。
These reforms have come about because of a particular case, the Andrew Bolt case in the federal court.
布蘭迪斯喺3月25號喺自由黨內宣布政府將會對種族歧視法進行改革，廢除第18C 條例。但係佢表示，有關修訂會進行1個月嘅諮詢期，諮詢期會喺4月30號結束。
在4月30號以前，我想我們每一個中國公民，在澳洲的中國人，我們都可以把你的聲音通過英文的方式發到國會的那個郵箱，告訴那個政府的政治家，這個廢除這個法律是不允許的，是不可以的。
I'm urging all members of the community to make a submission by the 30th of April, to contact their local MPs and let them know. But it's not enough to be outraged in one's head. We need to make sure that everyone has their voices heard and has their say.
時間一日一日咁過去，如今距離諮詢期嘅結束日只剩低短短嘅9日時間。上個星期就有民意調查顯示，幾乎90%嘅受訪者都認為種族歧視法應該保持現狀。換句話講，大部分嘅受訪者都認為政府冇必要修改種族歧視法。對於種族歧視專員 Tim 嚟講，廢除或者唔廢除第18C 條例，呢個會對澳洲未來社會有好關鍵嘅影響。
But if the law sends a message that you can say certain things, even on racial grounds, and that is protected by free speech, then we may be heading into a kind of society that is quite ugly in character.